So this is a webinar and presentation on the third Tierra property. So I have done a webinar on Tierra Atacama and Tierra Patagonia already. Those are both up on our YouTube channel for you to see and for you to use as reference. I also sent follow-ups with the presentation as an email before, so you can use that as reference as well. So thank you very much for coming along this afternoon again to our presentation on Tierra Chiloe. I think you all know me by now, but I am Nicola, the UK Market Manager for Senderos, and I work very closely with Simon and Gareth, representing our partners in the UK market, as well as the German and Swiss and Austrian markets. So the webinar will take in the form of a 20 to 25-minute presentation, and then there will be time for a quick Q&A at the end in the chat box. Again, I will follow up with an email with any questions asked and a link to the recording. And as you know, I'm doing a series of these webinars from the email that I sent out. I already had some scheduled. So next week, Gareth will be joined with Connie Bartle from Polar Latitudes, and they'll be presenting the 2 expedition ships to Antarctica. The following week, I'll be concentrating on Estancia Cristina in Argentina, and then the following week after that, Puerto Valle in northern Argentina. And so today I'm going to concentrate on Tierra Chiloe, the unique 24-bedroom hotel situated on a small peninsula on the eastern coast of Chiloe Island, surrounded by amazing green pastures and deep blue seas, with numerous flocks of birds visiting the nearby bays. So the hotel is the smallest of the 3 Tierra properties, and the only one which actually expanded on a building which was already on this site. Tierra then extended this extraordinary building further about 5 years ago, and brought in architects to work with the materials to reflect the architecture of the island, which, if you know the island at all, is the kind of the stilted houses, and the church is built with wooden shingles. They also incorporated these incredible thermo-paneled windows to create the extension in the right location and orientation, so that the light and heat can be absorbed into the building. And this eventually proved to save approximately 66% of the hotel's energy. I'll go over a few more of their sustainability efforts at the end of the presentation. So how to get there? Chiloe Island can be accessed by road and a short 20-minute ferry from the mainland. The ferry lands at the very northern point of the island. It's about a 2-hour drive from Puerto Montt to the ferry point, and then it's a 3 to 4 hour drive south to Castro and then on to Tierra Chiloe. To save time, guests may also want their itinerary to be built around in accordance with the flight schedules from Santiago to Castro. So Castro is the only airport on the island, which is then only a 35-minute ride to the hotel. It's also a good place, the hotel, for a self-drive package as well, as the island is a fascinating place to explore by road and with your own car. There's lots of amazing villages and towns and places to visit in the Lake District. And it's all very easily accessible by car. And I know that a lot of DMCs provide guests with their maps and things like that. So yeah, Tierra Chiloe can definitely be accessed in a self-drive package as well. Transfers at particular times in accordance with the flight arrivals into Puerto Montt and Castro are included in the fully inclusive package price with Tierra. They are what they call regular transfers, and so they are generally shared. So if somebody did want a private transfer, then this may cost extra. So it's a minimum 2-night for all inclusive packages. As I mentioned, with transfers to and from Castro or Puerto Montt, excursions, full board and an open bar, and there are also bed and breakfast rates available. So Chiloe, why visit Chiloe Island? It's quite often one of those destinations, as I'm sure you will agree, that is not necessarily a highlight of Chile, but one that kind of creates this extra depth of the culture and heritage of the country. It's well known for a few different reasons, mainly like the cultural heritage and the architecture, but it is also undiscovered enough for it not to be overrun with tourists, and has a very natural and calming feel to it. I know that sounds strange in some sense, but for me, I'm from Devon, and it feels very much like the same rolling hills, and it's got kind of this same kind of feeling of being out in nature. But it is quite often wet, like Devon and Wales, being right on the western side of Chile. There's a lot of farming, but it has this incredible character and real depth of tradition. And this is shown through their food, their cuisine, their farming traditions, and also their really rich folkloric culture. These here are the common wooden stilt houses known as Palaphitos, often made with shingled outer walls. Another characterization of Chiloe Island are the many UNESCO protected churches. These are old Jesuit churches built in the 17th and 18th centuries, also made with shingles from the local wood to protect them against the elements of the winds and the rains. This architecture has worked so well that many of these churches have stood through storms and lots of rain since the 17th and 18th century to be in excellent condition today. And many of these churches are located around the middle and eastern areas of the island, which is actually where Tierra Chiloe is also located. So the people of the island have also maintained the older methods of farming as well as weaving with the wool collected from the sheep, and still their boats are made in a very traditional way. At Tierra Chiloe, each guest is actually presented with a pair of pantuflas, which are the woolen slippers that are quite traditional to the region, and these are knitted by a specially commissioned women's cooperative that is located quite close to the hotel. And the image at the bottom of this slide shows how the island itself is also part of a larger archipelago of smaller islands, most of which are inhabited with farms and small villages. So onto the hotel. Here you may be able to see that the modern architecture was designed to reflect the traditional Palaphitos of the island, standing above with the building standing above the ground and held up by much larger stilts than the smaller buildings you'll find in the towns. The orientation of the hotel was designed specifically to showcase the Pacific from every angle. An aspect of each of the Tierra hotels which really does stand out is their extremely large windows to allow guests to experience the feeling of wanting to constantly be immersed in nature, and as well as the surrounding landscape, which can be visible from every angle in the hotel. So this view here is of the Palau Wetland. So this is situated right next to the hotel. These wetlands boast a really rich array of shorebirds. And among them, if you know your birds, they are the curved-bill curlew, the climbing curlew, the Chilean flamingo, the Chilean plover, black-necked swan, and the Hudsonian godwit, which is actually a bird that migrates every year in November from Alaska to this very particular bay to feed and hibernate before returning in March. So they travel over 9,000 miles for this, sometimes not even stopping on their journey. And I suppose that is depending on how hungry they are. And so moving indoors, here we see that all the natural materials and these huge large windows bring a real sense of calm to the building. There's a central wood burning stove within the indoor living area, which looks over the estuary where all the birds gather at low tide. And as you can see here on the right hand side, there's a telescope that guests are free to use when there is low tide. And the guides will be readily available to help guests identify which flocks of birds are flying around at that particular time. There is also a second seating area and library area with huge comfy chairs to sit, enjoy the view and read. And dotted around, guests will notice that there are lots of kind of traditional wooden carvings in the public areas, and these are all handmade by local artisans, including the lucky pig footstools, which you can see here, which come from a particular folklore tale from the island. There are also a couple of outdoor seating areas with large wood burning stove again, And this one is undercover to protect against the rains, and guests are provided with these thick woolly blankets for people to snuggle up under. And then there is a large outdoor terraced area in the middle, or what I would imagine they might call the courtyard of the hotel. This is an area where they may serve pre-dinner cocktails and wine, but they also use this space to prepare and serve a coranto, so the traditional pit bake, Chilean pit bake, which I'll explain a bit about in a moment, and where they bring in local folk bands and music and dancing as the sun is setting. As you can see, the interior is very much in keeping with the Tierra style, which is all wooden with incredible geometric angles, high ceilings and wooden panelled walls. This produces a real sense of wide open space, but it also provides a hushed kind of environment throughout the hotel. It never feels like you're kind of rattling around in a noisy environment at all. And the interior designers that Tierra kind of contract throughout their properties are actually pioneers in their field. They incorporate local craftsmanship into their projects and pay homage to regional culture. So in Chilean, they decided to let each space tell a story. Considering the richness of talent both nationally and across the archipelago, their aim was to integrate Chilote craftsmanship with contemporary Chilean design. So they invited local artists to work on specifically commissioned pieces, including intricately crafted dioramas, which echo Chilote mythology, and individual takes on the typical regional churches, and an interpretation of the Minga, which is an island tradition where homes are moved across the island with boats or oxen with the help of neighbours and friends. A splash of colour is also added with the weavings from local lamb's wool, wood carvings, and the colourful hand-painted map by artist Claudia Peña that mimics the memoirs of visitors' personal travel logs, such as treasuring items such as the native trees, animal depictions, and rare shells. So, included within the kind of interior of the hotel, guests will also find an in-hotel market. This takes inspiration from the markets on the island and serves as an open pantry for anyone who would like to try the wares. These include the fruits and nuts grown on the island, as well as fresh coffee and fruit juice that's always topped up. And they have a few recipe books here of the traditional cuisine from the island. And just beyond that, you have the bar, which sits above the restaurant. And from here, you can sit and still look out to the bay beyond. Their signature pisco sour here is made with local honey and herbs, and they also serve a delicious golden schnapps, which is locally produced in Chonchi. So as I mentioned at the beginning, all meals are included at the hotel, typically, as with the other Tierra hotels, with 3 choices per course. And food is all sourced locally and inspired by the traditional dishes of the island. So highlights include lots of locally caught seafood and shellfish, including the Caulian oysters, Cayón crabs, fresh fish, Chiloe and Coranto stews, Nucao pancakes, and chapelele dumplings. As always, they are served with an extensive choice of Chilean wines, artisan beers, classic cocktails, and local cider. The hotel has its own kitchen garden within the property itself and greenhouse, and so most of the vegetables served come from their own produce, and the meat that they serve comes from the surrounding farms. And also, if there is enough demand in the hotel, or if they are at a certain occupancy, the hotel will organise a traditional coranto. So this is the traditional Chilean pit bake, which you find in other Andean countries as well. So they make a big hole in the ground and make some rocks very hot, and then they steam some baked fish, shellfish, meats and potatoes within these rocks for several hours under some nalca leaves. And nalca leaves are like rhubarb plant native to the island, these enormous leaves which keep all the steam in. So they do that for a few hours until it is all cooked, and then people come out and it is eaten all communally. served with fresh Chilean Sauvignon Blanc and quite often accompanied by local folk music and some dancing. It's a really lovely activity and very convivial. And so onto the spa. The spa here is a really beautiful large space to take some time and relax. They have a sauna, steam room, massage room, large jacuzzi, one indoor and one outdoor pool, well, two heated pools, one indoor, one outdoor, and large deck chairs with views of the bay. The outdoor infinity pool is quite an iconic feature of the hotel. It's a wonderful place just to relax and look out across the bay and out to sea. It's covered also by the hotel's living areas above it, so this is the extension to the hotel. And now on to the rooms. So there are 24 rooms in total, and much like the other hotels, the majority are of one standard, and that is superior. They all have panoramic views over the sea, either towards the mainland or the Palau Bay. Within those 24 rooms, there are 2 suites and 5 family rooms, which are slightly larger and can fit an extra bed. The cosy decoration includes hand-dyed rugs and local lambs wool throws, as well as the pantuflas I mentioned earlier, which you can see on the bed here. So this is an example of one of the superior non-family rooms with the bathroom behind. Each room is also equipped with Austral Organics, which you can see here. And these are actually Chilean produced organic soaps, shampoos and conditioners and lip balm, all made with native and natural ingredients. And they are either in refillable or recyclable containers in the rooms. This is a suite which has an upstairs mezzanine and views out to the terrace behind, as well as out to the sea in front. The mezzanine has an extra seating area where you can also fit an extra bed. And many of the rooms, especially the larger family rooms, have these incredible bathrooms with bathtubs where you can sit again and look out to these amazing views out to the bay beyond. So adventures and excursions. As with the other Tierra hotels, the guides take the guests through their different options they have during their stays. They do that right at the beginning of their stay. And this will depend on their interests, their abilities, and of course the weather forecast. We tend to recommend that guests stay at least 3 nights to get the most out of the area, but also use it for a bit of R&R, mainly because this hotel is surrounded by a huge amount of green countryside, and it's very quiet, and it's a wonderful place just to stay and relax for a while. So the activities range from hikes to horseback riding to bike riding. You can also go out on boats, and there are kayaks, and there are a few cultural and heritage tours as well. Tierra Chiloe has its own stables within their property, and this is run by locals who care for the horses as their own. Hard hats and chaps are available, and routes can take anything from just an hour along the bay to a full day out in the surrounding hills. There are a couple of excursions which take guests on horseback to visit a local shipyard, for example, or to the local town of San Jose. There are also opportunities to take out the hotel's mountain bikes, either on self-guided trails or with a guide. These are all accessible from the hotels. There are several trails that can be done directly from the hotel, but if guests want to go further afield, then they can be taken out in the vehicles. As with the other hotels, I just wanted to mention that there is no minimum to the amount of people who can take excursions. If it's just one person, then we'll take them out. The maximum is 8, but the normal group the normal size of group is normally around 4 to 6 people. There are also several really incredible hikes that can be found on the island. Most of these hikes are quite remote, so it's worth bearing in mind that the transfer time to these hikes can take anything from 2 hours to 3 hours. So these include remote areas such as the Tantauco National Park, with evergreen and cypress forests, and huge lakes and ancient peat bogs. And guests can also be taken over to the western coast, where you can find the Muelle de las Almas, or take a boat down a river to begin a hike along the coastline. So this is what I just mentioned, the Muelle de las Almas. So that is the Bridge of Souls, which can be visited on a full day trip from the hotel. You can witness the amazing views for yourself and see the sea lion colony down the bay below. So this bridge was built in homage to the legend of the boatman Chinaway, who was said to take the souls of the dead to their final resting place. It's a very beautiful and serene spot. And to get here, it also includes a hike along the coastline. This is an example of the wilder west coast compared to the more kind of smaller islands that populate the eastern coast. So this side of the island, there's these kind of the huge wide beaches and cliffs. And it is on this side also where you find most of the penguin colonies and sea lion colonies. And this excursion is called Tricolor because of the colours of the forest and the sound of the sea. And the tour takes guests across dunes, pampas, native forests, and with incredible views over the cliffs. You also go through what they call the Chilean estate, which is an old gold panning site that was one of the most important sheep livestock ranches in the area, that then sadly disappeared after the 1960 earthquake. Many of these excursions also incorporate a visit to a local shingled church. Each one is unique in its style and architecture, and they've been lovingly looked after by the local communities and restored with help from with UNESCO funding. Often there's a small village to also discover, and their local graveyard, which obviously inhabits the people from the island, so offers that kind of depth of history. So there is a specific excursion called the Route of the Churches, which takes guests on a tour of these structures while learning all about the history of the island. And then this is the Welicho Boat. This boat actually belongs to Tierra Chiloe. It's a traditional wooden boat which takes guests out on trips to nearby villages, islands, and to spot the different marine life. It's built in the style of a traditional fishing boat and even has a small cabin inside for sleeping, which can be requested on special occasions if guests want to experience a night out on the water. It's really beautifully kitted out inside and extremely comfortable. Guests are offered snacks and drinks. And if you're out on this boat on a full day excursion, there will be a full buffet lunch cooked and heated up by the hotel's chef on board. It also has ample space out on deck as well. So this is a perfect place for spotting the wildlife and watching the landscape go by. So of the different animals that can be spotted whilst out on these excursions, guests are likely to see Humboldt penguins, seals, and also dolphins. Whales and orcas have also occasionally been spotted in the waters around the island and close to the hotel. On a clear day, when going out on the Welicho, you can spot the snowy tops of the Lake District volcanoes that border Chile and Argentina. And considering how many birds there are, it's difficult not to get kind of excited by the different species. So there are over 7,000 species that have been registered in the wetlands next to the hotel. And this really shows its relevance together with the wetlands all over Chilean, making up approximately 20% of the global presence of these birds. The boat can take several kayaks for guests to use. And so with these, the guides take guests through all the instructions and safety procedures, and then take them out on a route from one bay to another or one small island to another. So this will depend on the experience of the guest and their confidence and also the weather conditions. But I did this when I last visited Tierra Chiloe, and I found it to be a really wonderful way to be out on the water and see the islands and the bays and the villages from quite a different perspective. And it also then makes the really amazing snacks back on board all the more worth it. There are also a number of cultural heritage tours which can also incorporate a hike or kayak or both. So for example, mythical in the Chacos Islands is a really beautiful small island in the archipelago. It begins with a tour of Chinaway, a quaint port town of very few residents, which has a striking central church And then you go on to the islands that have a beautiful maze of interconnecting waterways and land masses. And then that afternoon can be spent kayaking the serene canals. And this can be done either in the kayaks that the hotel provides or in dugout canoes. And you can also take a relatively easy hike up to a viewpoint. And so that shows the range of activities, excursions, and facilities of the hotel. So as with the other two presentations, I've also included this slide to show the examples of kind of packages that Tierra can offer when combining one or more of their hotels, ranging from 6 nights to 10 nights, which may then include a 10% or 15% discount, as well as stays in selected hotels in Santiago. For their current promotions, they're currently offering a 25% discount on all bookings made on by the end of February. The deposit of only 10%, which can be paid up to a week after booking. All bookings are now fully refundable up to 30 days before travel, and guests can change their dates and keep the same rate without penalty up to 24 hours before their stay. So as you will already know, Tierra Chiloe has been closed for this season, which was inevitable really, but is really looking to open on the 30th of October this year and close for the winter on the 31st of March 2022. This is the normal season for Tierra Chiloe anyway. This is a slide which shows the key selling points of the hotel and hopefully things which I have covered in this presentation. Again, I'll send you a copy of this presentation so you can use these bullet points for reference when you're quoting for your clients or something you want to add to your website. And so just to recap, it's 24 rooms, most in the same standard, but with 2 suites and 5 family rooms. Minimum 2-night all-inclusive packages. They've got a beautiful spa, beautifully designed living spaces. There is bed and breakfast rates available in low season, so that is the kind of shoulder season, so October and March months. No fixed arrival days, many activities on offer which are included. There are also some extra activities such as fishing and ones that might go further afield, which may require a further cost. It's family friendly with adapted excursions and kids menu and babysitting services. And then, as I mentioned, there are discounts and specials. And then the link at the bottom of this slide will take you to their COVID protocols. So this will go over their procedures, their safety procedures to protect not only the guests, but also the staff and to make guests feel as comfortable as possible traveling now in this current climate. And as I mentioned in the last 2 presentations as well, Tierra have recently released their sustainability report, which is a fantastic kind of read to show their achievements and their aims and objectives for the coming years in terms of sustainability and conservation. So the sustainability and conservation around Tierra Chiloe is mainly concentrated on the design of the hotel and how they reduce their energy, and also about how they protect the traditions and wildlife around the hotel, and also how they have managed to plant a lot of native species in their land and help all of that flourish and to keep that all going. So thank you all very much for listening. As I mentioned, I will be following up with an email and link. Our resource centre is on Squirrelfish, which there's a link for here, and you can find all the best high-res images, fact sheets, rate sheets, and excursion details. If there is anything else you need, please don't hesitate to contact me. You'll have my email address already. And then finally, here is a list of partners we are currently working with across South America and Costa Rica, including wilderness lodges, adventure spas, a private villa near Parachi, in Brazil, haciendas, and the expedition cruises run by Polar Latitudes, again, who will be presenting their webinar this time next week at 2 o'clock GMT. And so please don't forget to sign up to the other webinars that I've sent you a schedule for over the coming weeks. I think I've done it for the next 4 weeks. And then I'll send another one out after that. And do remember to follow us on social media, so our Instagram accounts, Senderos Partners, and Facebook. So thank you again, and please let me know if you have any questions. I think somebody did just ask me a question as I was chatting, so let me see. What sort of temperatures weather could you expect in summer? It's a very good question. I've been to Chiloe Island probably about 8 or 9 times, and I have been very lucky because it's been very sunny every time I've been, and so you get these incredible um, green hills, and the sea just looks like this dark emerald blue, and it's absolutely wonderful. And last time I went, it was still really like that. However, I do know that it can generally be quite cloudy a lot of the time as well. That's what makes it so green and so lush, and why the birds love it. So that's just something to bear in mind. In the summer, if it is cloudy and rainy, then it does tend to get a little bit chilly. You know, dress in layers with a fleece and waterproof jacket. But when it is hot and sunny, you know, a t-shirt will definitely suffice. How easy are connections onto Patagonia? Well, generally, connections onto Patagonia are good from Puerto Montt. And so the transfer back to Puerto Montt is included with the hotel price, and they will coordinate that with flights to the main destinations. And so you'll find that there are several flights from Puerto Montt down to Punta Arenas. However, as we all know, flight schedules at the moment are up in the air, so to speak. And so that's something that you will have to maybe find out from your DMC a bit more. But generally, yeah, it's easily combinable with Patagonia, particularly Punta Arenas. I actually flew down to the Isen from here, and so I was able to do that really easily down to Balmaceda. So that's a good combination as well. What is a recommended age for children to visit? I mean, to be honest, any age, but I think that children who are kind of more interested in, you know, horse riding and bike riding, and ones who can hike will probably get the most out of this. So I think maybe kind of 10-year-olds and upwards, or maybe, and then small babies, and so the other side. So ones that are easily transportable, and then ones that will get more out of kind of the wildlife and the interesting folklore tales, and the activities on offer. I'm going to stop sharing this now. Does anybody have any other questions at all? Great. Well, thank you very much for joining, everybody. I will see you in 2 weeks' time. And Gareth and Connie will be presenting polar latitudes at 2 o'clock next Wednesday.